What's up, y'all? It's your girl Amanda, and welcome to another episode of the Dope Confidence Podcast. Man, I am excited about this episode today. I met this guy at the Sparkle Foundation up in Northern California last year, but this year we actually had a really in-depth conversation about his life, his journey, his story of becoming, and I'm excited to share all the things about Trevor, and I want to introduce him properly today. We're going to welcome Trevor Henley. He is an inspirational activist of Desire to Inspire Studios and Desire to Inspire Studios Foundation. He has a story that you will want to hear that is going to change your life. You talk about resilience. You talk about being a comeback kid. This guy, Trevor, right here is that. So I'm going to introduce Trevor. How are you, Trevor?
I am doing great, Amanda, and thank you for this opportunity today. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm so excited to talk to you. I was so blown away. So we met each other, like I said, through the Sparkle Foundation, through Samantha, the queen of Sparkle.
Right.
And we had a really great conversation before the event started it's been 2 weeks now, right?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
It's crazy. Just about his story. And then, we're talking about, has some new equipment and, leveling up this year with the media for the event. And just kind of just slid into this conversation about how he got started and where he came from, his origin story. And I was just like, wow. And wow, Trevor. So, Trevor, tell us a little bit about, why do you call yourself an inspirational activist? Let's start there.
Ooh, well, that is a great question, and I love that. I call myself an inspirational activist because it always starts a conversation.
Okay.
Either that or people about face and walk away, and I don't have to have that conversation. But I call myself an inspirational activist because my personal mission in life is really like threefold, but it's to create common bonds where people didn't know they already existed. Mm-hmm. It's to allow people to smile from the heart. And through my work has always been to allow people to pursue their passion and to inspire people to pursue their passion as a career.
Wow. And but why though? Where does that come from? I know it just didn't like pop out of anywhere. It came from something. It's connected to a story, right?
It's probably connected to many stories.
Okay.
I was in a group and we were doing Enneagram work. I don't know if you know what Enneagrams are. I still did all the work and I still am not clear exactly what they are. But we were in this group meeting for about a year, and it was coming up on like a year, and then we all had to come up with titles, and we went around and each one, and they're like, "You're an inspirational activist." And I was like, "I don't know what that is, but I am in." That feels like it describes me 100%. And so, the other part of it is I always bring positivity. I'm always like, whether I mean to or not, I find when I walk into a room, I light up the room, right? Like I bring energy. I am a ball of energy. I try and wear all black and today white because I couldn't find my black shirt, but to just subdue my energy. Otherwise I'd be out there in like neon pink suits and just doing it.
I want to see that next year.
I'm working on it. I'm doing some MC gigs.
Are you?
And I'm like, all right, well, I think I got to get into the fun suits.
Yeah. I'm here for it. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about your story, because you just didn't start out doing media. It's really connected to a beautiful transition from you being homeless and just starting over again. So tell us a little bit about your life.
Yeah, trying to cliff note version, it's still like a half hour story. But the small cliff note version is, when I didn't fit into the school system. I didn't fit into the idea of, listening to adult figures and people telling me what I could and could not do. I was suspended in kindergarten. I don't know if you know anyone else that's ever been suspended in kindergarten, but I was suspended in kindergarten. And I was in trouble all the way through school, all the way through my junior year of high school. And my parents were on a first name basis with all of my principals, with all of the teachers. The thing is I never got in trouble for the same thing twice. They knew I wasn't a bad kid. I just was obviously bored and the school system didn't work for me. until I figured out how to work the school system and make it work for me. And then I was the person handing out all of the referrals to the bad kids in my going into my junior year. And then it was like, wait. All of my peers were like, what are you doing handing this out? I'm like, I'm working for them now, let's see what happens. And I've also I was an entrepreneur when I was in middle school.
Yeah.
I worked at a deli before I went to school, and every morning I would go and I'd prep the deli and get it ready. And then one day they're like, hey, we're not going to pay you anymore. And I was like, okay. And they're, why? And they're like, you're working illegally. And I was like, okay. Can I keep working here? And they're like, sure. And I was like, can I take some sandwiches to school and call it good? And they're like, sure. So I ended up taking 5 sandwiches a day because I didn't want to be greedy, but I was selling those sandwiches for $5 a piece to my peers and making $25 a day as a middle school student. I'm like,
you
I had a CD collection like no other until it got stolen. But, and so I have just always beat to my own drum. I have always butted against, people telling me what I can and cannot do. And I was also all the way through school put down and bullied and beat up for marching to my own drum, for not giving in to what other people say, for not doing what they want.
Yeah.
And I remember going through school, and I remember one day in 5th grade running from a group of my peers, knowing that if they caught me, they were going to beat me up and punch me and kick me and yell at me. And this one day I was running on the grass and I slipped because it was wet, and I went down, and all of a sudden I had 10 of my peers on top of me. And I just remember laying there and I just started laughing. And that didn't help the situation, but
I'm sure.
I just started laughing, and I just couldn't believe that this is how my peers chose to spend their time, because someone else thought it was cool to put someone else down, and that's what they chose to get behind. And so I just kept beating to my own drum. I kept doing my own thing. And I was also a very confident kid as myself, but I was also very not confident at all. I just didn't, I had the story of I wasn't good enough. And so all the way up until my junior year in high school, I was this awkward kid. I had many friends in little places, but I didn't have any really good friends. I had 2 good friends. But I was put down by everybody, but also liked by everybody. So it was a really weird situation.
Interesting.
And then I fell into a photography class. I got scheduled to do photography. I wanted to take illustration because my dad drew Christmas cards since 1972, and I wanted to learn how to draw, and my stick figures need work. And I got placed in this photography class, and I took 3 photos of a varsity football game at night. And those 3 photos got used in the yearbook over the photographers that have been going every game and taking rolls and rolls of film.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I went to Germany and I brought back a photo album of all of my photos, and everybody asked me why I bought so many postcards. And at the time I was pissed. I was like, I took these. What are you doing? I took these. And someone's like, Trevor, it's a good thing. And I was like, why is that? And it means you could sell your work. And I was like, oh. And then my senior year, I did all the photography at our school. And in that process, I learned that finally photography was actually how I could communicate to the world and to my peers what I see on a daily basis, how my vision of life is. Amazing. And I could finally convey it in a photograph. And so entrepreneurial life, I ended up taking photos of all the football games, all the basketball, the volleyball, everything at our school. And then I would spend 2 periods back to back and lunch in the dark room printing out photos and selling them to my friends for $5 each.
So did your camera really become your best friend?
Yeah. I mean, I never went anywhere without it. I even shot the photos that I was in, including the sports that I was in. I figured out how to set a timer and be like, oh, I'm running to first. It wasn't a great photo, and it wasn't one of the ones that got used, but I was able to do it,
Yeah.
So it went with me, and I learned that I was really good at seeing things, and I could capture it and then be like, this is what I saw. And then people are like, whoa, that's really cool. Tell me more. I'm like, oh, you mean I can talk now?
Mm.
And go from there. And that's how conversations really grew from there, and my confidence grew. Um, and so I started my business, doing photography right out of high school.
Yeah.
I went to ask my yearbook teacher, where do I go getting a job? And she's like, I don't know, ask the yearbook guy. And I went for what I thought was an interview, and it was my first day of training. He's like, I already know you can shoot. The entire yearbook is yours. I just need to know
Wow.
you can shoot my way. And I was like, okay. And so I shot a senior portrait, and I was moved to head photographer, and I was taking double the amount of photos of anyone else, and all my head sizes were the same, and everyone had the most natural smile,
Mm.
or horrendous smile. And it was the kids that were like me that I
Uh-huh.
didn't want to deal with, that I gave the horrendous ones, and I gave them an out. And if they didn't take it, I had to make them come back because the
Yeah.
yearbook wouldn't print it, so they had to come back. So fast forward, I moved up to Tahoe in the winter of 0405 with the idea that I'm going to do anything and everything I want to do. And if I survive, great.
Wow.
What I didn't realize at the time was that I was moving up to try and escape. And
Mm.
I was really trying to escape being told what I could not do by my parents, by my peers, by I feel like every aspect of my life. And
Mhm.
so I went up there, and I call it the best time of my life I'll never remember. I have vague
Wow.
memories of some of it, but long story short, I lost 65 pounds. I tore my rotator cuff. I seized my lower back. I bruised my femur. I racked $35,000 of debt. And I had a bleeding ulcer for about 2 years that finally healed eventually. And I
Wow.
also met the angel of my dreams, my now wife, during that time as well. And that's a whole nother story for a whole nother podcast.
Jeez. So
Um,
when during that time period when you're in the lowest parts of your life,
yeah.
and I know there's some lower parts that you're gonna share, were you still doing photography or?
Yeah, so I would go around the mountain and take photos while I was taking, of my friends doing their tricks, and
Mm-hmm.
also at all the parties, I had a loft, and so I would stand up on the walls, mainly whatever you want to call it, out of my mind on drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
But I would take photos of all of it. I had 100 to 300 people in my house, and I was like, I need to remember this. And I'm taking photos of everyone. And I've got like 7 photos left from a hard drive that crashed. And it's like enough to go, oh, yeah, that was insane.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I always have my camera with me. And, um, that's kind of just, again, how I kept telling my story. And that's how I kept connecting with my friends there in Tahoe. And I remember going, someone like, hey, can you come catch me, jumping off a jib? And I'm like, sure. And I'd go down with them and take the camera and get it. And they're like,
Wow.
that's awesome. And I was like, yeah, cool. I thought it was kind of fun too. Um, and so, yeah, so during that time is just when I just kept partying harder and harder and harder, and I
Yeah.
realized, a couple of times during it that, like I said, I was trying to escape, and I was going into severe depression. I just figured I could party my way out of it harder,
Wow.
um, and by the time I left there after 5.5 months, I couldn't stay. I ended up traveling. Well, I ended up moving out, and I was like, I should have died at least 7 times that I can remember.
Jeez.
Um, and it's like, well, if I'm alive and I'm not going to make it much longer, what do I want to do? And I was like, I always want to travel the coast of California. So I got in my truck with whatever possessions weren't trashed and headed down the coast, and ran out of money in Moss Landing, and
Wow.
turned out to meet a guy there that I painted houses for in Tahoe during that time of my life I'll never remember, and he gave me a helping hand up.
Wow. Full circle meeting him in California. Wow.
Yeah,
And you're at the lowest point in your life, but you still had your camera, still
still have
had,
my camera.
which is crazy. You
Yeah.
still had your camera, and you found yourself at the lowest point in your life. When did you have your epiphany, your aha moment where you're like, you know what, I really need to make some changes in my life?
Yeah. Um So when I ran out of money, I like I said, I ended up in Moss Landing, and I was living out of my truck. I could barely stand for at most 4 hours at that time.
Wow.
And this guy allowed me to work on his sailboat, and someone else at a local fish market would help me out with fish from the day that they couldn't sell, and but wasn't bad, and that was often my one meal a day. And then I'd try and cut pieces of it and go fishing, which I'm not a great fisherman in that regard either. So I was surviving off of a couple friends of helping hands up, and for the first time in my life, I had to use my brain because I only had that left. I couldn't physically do anything, and I just started taking inventory of, okay, I survived.
Yeah.
I should have died. I don't know if I'm going to make it much longer, but obviously I've got guardian angels out there. I've got people, I've got the universe looking out for me. Why am I alive? Why am I still alive? And I just kind of started asking those questions, and I kept diving deeper, and what is my purpose? And I had run my own painting business. I had run my own photography business. I had fallen off a 30-foot ladder in my painting business. I was like, well, that was one of those other times I should have died. Maybe I don't want to go do that anymore. So I think photography is going to be the safer thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I took inventory of all my partying and all my career, and that's one of the first epiphanies I had, is that I'm really good at creating common bonds where people didn't see them existing before.
Wow.
And I'm really good at allowing people to smile from the heart, that uninhibited smile. Like, I'm a professional 5-year-old. That's how I see my life. That's how I live. That's how I've always lived.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was, like I said, living out of my truck. I took inventory. I'm like, okay, well, what do I want to do? And I was like, I'm going to go I can't work for anyone. I'm going to go make it a go on my own the right way. And I grabbed Business Plans for Dummies, and I read it through, and I wrote out as many answers as I could, not, educated college-wise, except for more partying over there.
Uh-huh.
And so I just wrote it out to the best of my ability. And then January 1st, 2006, I said, all right. I had, again, the other story, I had started dating my now wife, Nikki, and she's definitely one of the angels in my dreams. But I had the backing of someone who cared and someone who liked me.
Wow.
And I didn't understand that at the time, but she's like, go get it. Let's do it. And I just started my business January 1st, 2006. I was like, I'm going to go take photos of headshots of realtors, because generally the person that I meet and the person that's on the card are two different people, and they need headshots, and that's what I can do.
Yeah.
And then it just grew from there.
Wow. Wow. And so she was your angel.
Oh yeah.
She was your
She's
angel
one of them for sure.
to help you to get back on your feet and start your own business without a degree, just business plans for dummies, which is crazy to me. So you launch your business, and you still have that confidence, of course, that's deep inside of you, and especially in your gifts and your talents. When did you say in your mind, you know what, I want to start being a photographer for organizations, helping them tell their story, the beautiful work that they're doing?
Yeah. So when I started my business, I didn't know what I was doing. I was looking for food, I was looking for clients, and I was looking for money.
Aren't we all, right?
Right? I had no idea, but that was what I thought I was after.
Yeah.
And very quickly, I got approached by nonprofit organizations, and they were like, "Hey, can you shoot our nonprofit fundraiser?" And I was like, "What's a nonprofit and what's a fundraiser?"
Wow.
And they're like, "Oh, we do this, and then we're raising money for this." And I was like, "Okay, can you pay me?" And they're like, "No." "Can you feed me?" "Yes." "Check, I'm in. What else?" And then I started to learn.
Wow.
So I did my first 3 years of business were like, if it had food, if it had money, and if it had relationships, if it had all three, it was awesome. But if it had any one of them, I was a yes.
For
You
3
know, and
years?
yeah, because I had a big hole to climb out of. I had $35,000 of debt and no income, and needed to figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah.
And so I just started doing all this nonprofit work, and then I realized that there were people out there that wanted to help, because they could, because they've been there, because they know someone who has been there, and they'd simply want to help because they can. And they were giving people helping hands up. And I definitely been part of many organizations that were giving, handouts. And I was like, well, this is cool. Like, I totally could have used a blanket. Like, I totally could have used a free meal. I totally could have used all these things. But what I realized is by many of the organizations teaching skills and how to get back on your feet, how to deal with finances, how to do all these things, that they were really empowering people for life, that wanted to make the change. And so I kept down that path of just focusing more and more on that, in all of my asks. And at the same time, I was still growing my business and learning all about how my future failures as a business owner were going to come to light.
Right.
But failures for me are just first attempts at learning, and it's uh and the craziest thing that happened, because this is going to tie into where we're at, in like the first 6 months of my business, someone asked me, hey, do you want to host an intern? And I was like, what is an intern? And they're like, it's like a high school student that wants to learn photography or videography. And I was like, why would you want them to come meet with me? Like, I'm a mess. I was homeless 6 months ago. Like, I don't know where my next meal's coming from. Like, I've got loving parents that are still supporting me. I don't know why. But I'm a mess. And they're like, yeah, but you're a good person and you take good photos. And I was like, okay. All right, I'll give it a whirl. And I realized what I was doing was teaching them how to put their hands out in front of their face. So when they failed, they didn't rub their face off on the side of the concrete like I did. And it was more about life skills. And I've been through many lives already. And if I can give back because I am alive, then there's nothing else I need to do. It's just but give back. And that'll help me get where I want to go.
Wow. That's amazing. How did you keep your confidence? How did you still believe in yourself even at the lowest points of your life? How did you keep that?
I will two things. One is I wear this gold chain.
Okay.
Not because it looks amazing, but because when I was 17, my aunt took her life, due to alcohol and drugs, and couldn't cope with life. Before she did that, many months before, she gave me this. And it was a constant reminder of what I never wanted to do to my family and or friends, because of how it left my mom, how it left my family, how it left me. I just didn't think it was fair, that she took that out. Now, I didn't understand the full depth of it. I was going to get there eventually. But during those darkest moments in my time where I definitely contemplated suicide, I definitely contemplated ending it all. I definitely was like, what the heck am I doing? There is no point in this anymore. Like, I'm not doing anyone any good. But I always wore this, and it never came off in all of my craziness. And it would always be a constant reminder of the bottom that I ever wanted to go. And I would never off myself. I would never take that out, because I am alive. I have that gift and I have something to do with it. And so that was one when it really got bad, the core of it. The other one was I've always beat to my own drum. I've always done it. I'm like, well, I got myself here. How am I going to get myself out? And just take, actually, I think her name was Emily, and she was in one of your previous podcasts. And she reminded me of one of the times I was going through a really dark moment last year after, again, learning one of those business entrepreneur failures and moments, the Frozen song, where Anna is in the cave and singing when Elsa is gone, and she's like, just the next right thing, and like, I don't even know if that's the right one, but the idea is there, right? And so it's taking, okay, well, what is the next step? What is the next right thing? Like, okay, I'm not going to off myself. What's the next thing I'm going to do? I should probably figure out how to get some food. Okay. And then it's the next thing. Okay, I probably need to drink something else besides alcohol. And it was so small, and it just kept going. And it wasn't easy, but it just kept going and building and building and building. And now it's even still building even more.
Yeah. Well, speak to the individuals that have lost everything. All
Mm.
those entrepreneurs out there that are at rock bottom, feeling really bad about the decisions that they've made, trying to figure out, should they go on? Is there any hope for them? Speak to
Yeah.
them and what they should do, how they can move forward.
Yeah. I love that question, and thank you so much. I have a simple thing.
Okay.
You go like this. Go like this for me, Amanda, and then go like this, and then go like that. I got this, right?
Yeah.
Like, one, I believe in, if I don't fail today, I'm not trying hard enough.
Mm.
So for me, that's one of my beliefs. And the other one is, because I should have died so many times, there's a reason I'm alive. And so every
Yes.
morning I wake up, I go like this, I go like this, I go like this, and the rest of the day is gravy,
Yeah.
from there. So I think the it's really easy to dwell on what's negative. It's really easy to dwell on how we screwed up, how we made the wrong decisions. I mean, as you know, well, I'm assuming because you are an entrepreneur, right?
I
If
know.
we make wrong decisions all the time,
Yes, we
right? And
do.
it's a matter of what you do with that and where do you want to go from here? You
Yeah.
know, I've always approached my life of jump off the cliff and see if I can learn to fly on the way down.
Mm.
And most times it works out pretty well, and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
And then I go, well, I got to jump off a higher cliff, give myself more time to learn how to fly, So it's a matter of where you want to look at. Like, if you're alive,
Yeah.
you have a lot of reason to live and love and give back to someone else.
Yeah, so true. Thank you for that. Um, and in my entrepreneur journey, everyone's entrepreneur journey, those that are watching, or those that want to aspire to be entrepreneurs, tell us the power of media, of us using media to tell our story. Why is
Yeah.
it so powerful? How can we take advantage of it, even if we don't have all the fancy equipment that you have?
Well, as you got in our pre-podcast, all the fancy equipment don't mean anything when you can't figure out how to get it to work.
Right.
Uh, the media is an incredible tool. I mean, the thing I love about being a photographer, it's a capture of that moment in time that will live on for history, telling that story over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
And being an entrepreneur and creating that material is, what is the story that you want to create? Right? And what is it now? And for me, it's measuring where I am and where I want to go. For me, actually, it's measuring Trevorland and then trying to figure out where reality is and bring reality up to Trevorland. But
Yeah.
media is such a powerful tool, and it can be used for, good or evil, right?
Mm.
And, this day and age, media is such a wide gamut, and it can be used for so many things. And I think the simplest way to inform the power of media is, if you are willing to share your stories, or willing to share your success, or willing to share your struggles with another person,
Mm-hmm.
you're no longer alone.
Yeah.
And being alone in our minds, in our lives, is what I think causes the most evil, so to speak,
Heck
which
yeah.
causes the most negativity, which causes the most I hate you. It when I'm alone, I don't have anything but negative feelings, hate, disgust towards all my decisions.
Yeah.
But if I share my story of where I'm at right then and there. If I share my thoughts, well, some people go, "You're nuts," and I'm like, "Yes, I am. Thank you." But if I share my thoughts, for better or worse, I'm making a connection with one other person, and that starts the conversation. That starts building the community. And when you leverage media, and if you're honest, and if you're truthful, and if you share the real you, you're
Yeah.
going to connect with the real people that you want to connect with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you're going to build your community. That's how you're going to build your tribe. That's how you're going to get to where you want to go. That's how you're going to help more people with the work that you love to do.
Yeah.
And that's that's the power of media, and that's where, what, who, what, when, where, and why. That's where we focus a lot of our education with our youth. Is like, look,
Yeah.
share your story. Like, you're all alone. I was a high school student. I'm still 5. Like, I'm
Yeah.
alone, right? But if I share my story, and if I fail, it's okay. It's actually a really good thing. It gets me that one more step closer to where I want to be. And so it is really being vulnerable, being able to
Mm-hmm.
share, being able to put it out in whatever context, whether it's a podcast, a video podcast, an audio podcast. I don't think they do telegrams anymore, but you know, there's so many different platforms out there that
Right.
you can find that connect with what you want to connect with.
That's so true. And I'm glad that you mentioned about sharing your successes and your struggles, because I think a lot of times, especially because of social media, we want to paint this picture of how great life is and how everything is so amazing and wonderful. But behind the scenes, we're dying. Like,
Right.
some people are really
Right.
struggling. And I know, you sharing your story with me was very empowering. Even with me starting over in the last couple of years post pandemic, like, I need to hear those stories of individuals that have started over, because that gives me hope. That reminds me that I'm not alone. But it also shows me too that I can start over or begin again, just like Trevor, just like,
Yeah.
Michelle, just like whoever. So I'm glad that you mentioned that it's important for us to share our successes and our struggles.
Yeah.
Talk to us about your foundation. You talked about the youth that you work with. Tell us about the foundation, why you started it, and what do you do with the youth in your foundation?
Yeah. So thank you for that. The foundation is Desire to Inspire Studios Foundation. This is a dream that I have always had ever since middle school, watching the news and going to my parents and being like, why don't they ever play good news? If I were evil, I would just watch the news for more bad ideas to do to people. Like, why don't they do anything good? Segue 30
Right.
years, whatever it is, um, it's the foundation is a dream, and it's to build, like, I've said it before, it's like making Trevorland and reality match.
Yeah.
And I actually had that accomplish last year and fail in the same year. It was the greatest and the greatest
Oof.
successes of being an entrepreneur. And our foundation right now is threefold. It's to fund international mission trips for our photographers or videographers to go and do mini documentaries or
Love that.
storybooks and highlight what organizations are doing internationally. The second one is we're working to rebuild it. I'm trying not to Kevin Costner Fields of Dreams this one.
Mm-hmm.
I am trying to find funding again, and as I rebuild, to launch our after school program, where we can serve up to 10 kids a day for 5 days a week and teach them how to do photography, videography, and live broadcasting.
That's amazing.
And the third one is to fund our Sunnyside Update, which we are currently doing, which is a 30-minute live stream, usually the last Thursday of the month. Usually last Thursday of the month, 5 to 5:30 is a live stream of half-hour good news of people helping people in our community.
Mm-hmm.
And then a community barbecue where I usually smoke some sort of meat for like 8 to 12 hours. And then I have a chef that comes in and takes care of all the non-meatitarian stuff.
Nice.
And it's just to get community together, break bread, and, have a good meal, because the 3 ways of people's soul is music, community, and food.
That's true.
And so why not have it all? So that's kind of where the foundation is. and where we're at right now. And like I said, last year got to the pinnacle where we had 9 employees. I grew it from 0 to 9 in 3 years or 4 years. And then I sat back and we had our 9 employees. We had like 15 interns, I think, working at the same time. We had a VA. And I just remember sitting back here in the studio and watching it all and going, it's alive. And it's like we're working with the youth. We're all shooting. We're all editing. We're all that. And then, 6 months later, I got to learn about my shortcomings of being an executive director and trying to come up with like 50 grand of payroll in 2 weeks. I'm like, ooh, whoops, that was what red flag was. That's what that was. Ooh, I probably shouldn't have delayed that one. But through that, I also came up with the greatest life-changing moment of my life, I would have to say, in the past, 15 years of running my own business, is when I was going through the darkest time of my professional and personal career and having to lay off our employees and realizing I was no longer able to support the extended family that I built. I reached out to my community, and I didn't understand this as it happened, but everybody answered their phone and said, hey, I saw it was you. What's up? What can I do for you? Wow. And I shared my story. I was like, I need to come up with 50 grand in 2 weeks. You got 50 grand? Come on. I need to come up with a contract. I have never been here before. I don't know what to do. I'm going through mentally, physically, like everything is kind of feeling like it's on fire. And I shared these stories with my peers, with my business community, with my friends. And I learned that, one, I was definitely not alone. And they'd been there. They are there. They were there. And they went, I'm going through it right now. Like, we're losing $1 million a month. And I was like, hold the phone. Right. You're losing $1 million a month? Why are you even talking to me?
I'm crying over 50,000.
I'm like, I'm not worthy of this conversation. If you're losing $1 million a month and I'm asking you how to come up with 50, he's like, dude, we all start there. We all have these moments. And I was like, man, one day when I'm no longer in my mental struggle, can we talk about how you can lose $1 million a month and still have conversations and be a human being? Which we have had, and it's amazing, and I've learned some amazing business lessons. And so as I was going through that really hard time, I had more of those thoughts of like, I was sitting in my studio. I'm like, what if I just ended it all? Whoa, did I really just say that? And I had another one like the next day, and I was like, maybe I'm not doing as good as I thought. And I reached back out to all those people. And I said, hey, I'm having these thoughts. They're like, whoa, no, never do that. Don't worry, I never will. Like, I have this chain. You heard that story earlier. Like, I will never do that to my family. But I thought I was figuring it out on my own. I thought I was doing okay. And I got the most edification from everyone that said, look, they all answered their phone no matter where they were at. And it culminated in someone wrote me a $5,000 donation check. And I called him on a Friday night. He answered his phone. Wow. And I just said, thank you. And he's like, of course. And I'm like, what? I don't have any other words. Like, what are you doing right now? And he's like, oh, I'm out to dinner with my wife, but I saw it was you. Wow. So I answered my phone and I was like, oh my God, I don't mean to take over like your dinner. He's like, no, you're an amazing human being. You're a gift to the world. You're a gift to every student you touch. You have no idea the ripple effects that you're causing in your community for good. You are an awesome human being. And if I can support you financially and that's how I can support you, I'm going to support you. That's beautiful. And I just stopped. I mean, I'm like, okay, well, now I definitely don't have any words. Thank you. And I'll see you soon. Right. Yeah. And I realized at that moment how many people had done the same exact thing on my phone calls. They had picked up the phone. They had helped me in any way they could. And in that moment, I overcame an internal story of I'm not good enough. Wow. And I went, hell no, I'm good enough. I'm great. I am fantastic. I am a gift to this world. Yes. I do believe in this. I got to absorb this. I got to sit there. And then for the next 2-3 weeks, I had so many awkward conversations because people were singing my praises and all of a sudden I was hearing it. And I
Wow.
had to sit there and listen and be like, no, I got to absorb this. Don't just listen and nod.
Mm-hmm.
Absorb this. And it's been amazing journey. And it's still not done. There's no way.
Yeah.
But I share that because many of us as entrepreneurs, like you, are doing an amazing job with
Thank
She
you.
Stories, getting those stories out, getting those women to express their stories. You're an amazing human being by creating that community, by helping
Mm.
that community thrive. But that's really hard to hear.
Yeah.
That's really hard to embody, even if we know it's good.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
it is good. And there's nothing more simple than that. It is good. And
Yeah.
you are good.
Thank
So
you.
keep on keeping on. You
Oh
got this,
well.
right?
You have brought up so many different things for another podcast, but
Yeah.
I think as entrepreneurs, when we're struggling, we have so much pride and shame,
Mhm.
right? Worried about judgment, that when we do need help or reach out to people, we're apprehensive because we have that, right? We have the
Right.
shame of, I can't believe I did this, or I let this go this far, or I saw the red flags, like you said, and didn't do
Yeah.
anything about it. And now it's like an emergency situation. But that's just the beautiful thing that you just mentioned about community, how you've always been there helping people out and
Yeah.
pouring into their life. And now they're pouring back into your life. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. I never had to ask for help in that regard. And I had to ask for help. And I was like, oh, this is what it's like on that side too.
Yeah.
Whoo. It's much easier to
Yeah.
give, yo. It's much easier to give.
Yes. Yes. I mean, man, like my nieces and nephews, they always used to borrow money from me. They used to call me the Bank of Hova, Jay-Z. So like, oh, Bank of Hova. And then like when challenging times, I was like, I ain't the Bank of Hova no more. Y'all can't come to me. But that kind of hurts a little bit on the inside, right? When you have built yourself to a certain level in your business and then things just don't work out, and then you deal with the failure and like, dang, I'm not where I used to be. But like everything that you're dropping today, all these gems are just reminders of this just is a part of life, right? A part of business is failing, but you got to fail forward and move forward.
Right.
So good, so good. So tell me, Trevor, if you could speak to the younger Trevor today, what would you tell him?
Keep on being you, man. You got this. You're going to go through a hell of a time. You're also going to have a hell of a fun life, but don't change a thing and keep going.
Yeah,
You
just
know,
be you.
yeah, just be you. And I have an 8-year-old son, and I am not a control freak in any way, shape, or form. I want to control everything. I need it to work. I need to fix it instantly. And
Yeah.
man, he's teaching me everything about
Wow.
that. And and it's like, be you. Be you. Let's like, I need to learn to work with you.
Yeah.
This isn't you. Like this isn't your fault. This is my fault. Like I got
Mm.
shortcomings that I'm not willing to admit. Okay, I am, but I'm now gonna fix it. Oh, I'm gonna try. Okay, we're gonna go through a lot, my little man. But you know what? I love you, and you be you, and let's keep going.
Yeah, I love that. Just be you. Be authentically you. There's no one else like you. Just be you.
Yep.
Thank you, man. Trevor, this is
Yeah.
such a great conversation. We got to have a part two. We got to talk about
Oh
failure.
yeah.
Like, oh my gosh.
All right. So I'll leave you a little cliffhanger for part two. It's not really,
Okay.
but the way I've looked at it is every success builds a new benchmark, right?
Okay.
A new bottom or a new plateau. Every failure builds a new bottom, right? Builds a new base, right? You're
Mm.
not going to go down and make that same mistake the same way, at least again.
Right.
But as universe and as, people, we tend to make the same mistakes that we got to learn, the same lessons that we got to learn over and over. In my case specifically, I've learned how to fail at that same idea multiple different ways.
Yeah.
But every time I did, my base, my foundation got a little bit thicker, got a little bit wider, and I had
Mm.
a new platform to stand on. And I was
Yeah.
able to reach that much higher to get to the new success. And so for every success, for every failure, it builds a new platform, a new benchmark to start from. And if you go below it, well, make a ladder. Let's go.
I love it. Make a ladder and go.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you, Trevor. I appreciate your time. This is so good.
Most definitely, Amanda. Thank you for being people, helping people. And I look forward to all the future things we get to do together.
Yes, me too. Y'all check Trevor out. All his information is going to be in the show notes. You can definitely donate to his foundation and just reach out to him if your organization in the Northern California area or just in California, period. I'm sure he'll travel. He'll help you to tell your story in the most beautiful way. So,
yep.
See y'all next time.
Amanda. Thank you.
Thank you.